Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to respectfully disagree with some of the sentiments that have been expressed by our colleagues. I think this is a question upon which reasonable people can disagree. And the reason is there are conflicting interests that we want to protect on both sides. I think there is certainly an interest in transparency. There's an interest in the American people having access to and being able to see the workings of our branches of government. And I think that's valuable, and that is the sentiment behind both of these bills. But I think at the flip side, all of us are concerned about the Supreme Court in particular being overly politicized. And cameras in the Supreme Court, there is a reason that virtually every Supreme Court justice opposes this. And I would point out that view is not a partisan view. It's not the Republican nominees oppose this. It's not the Democratic nominees oppose this. Just about every one of them opposes it. You know, here's what Justice Scalia said in 2012 about cameras in the courtroom, in the Supreme Court in particular. He said he believed that televising oral arguments would, quote, miseducate the American people, not educate them. And he explained that was because, quote, what most of the American people would see would be 30-second, 15-second takeouts from our arguments. And those takeouts would not be characteristic of what we do. They would be uncharacteristic. Before I was in the Senate, I spent my career litigating cases before the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is a unique institution. And I have no doubt that if there were TV cameras at oral arguments, you would see the lawyers for both sides behaving differently and playing to the camera. And unfortunately, you would see justices behaving differently and playing to the camera. And everyone on this committee knows exactly what I'm talking about, because every single one of us behaves dramatically differently when that C-SPAN camera is on than when the camera is off and we're in a classified briefing and suddenly people take their jackets off and they actually have conversations, and the entire temperature of the discussion drops about 30 degrees. We see that in our day-to-day life, and every one of us knows it's very different if it's being televised. If it's being televised, my Democratic friends may describe me as really a son of a bitch. Whereas with the cameras off, it maybe is a notch or two less, maybe not. I don't want to see the Supreme Court turning into a political drama. I think there's too much politics at the court. The way I balance those two interests is I have another bill, which is an amendment, and I want to call up my amendment right now. It is Amendment SIL 21744.
Senator, for clarification, this is on 807?
Yes. This amendment is entitled Hear the Courts Act of 2021. And what this amendment tries to do is balance those two interests, and it provides that the Supreme Court and lower courts should put out same-day audio of appellate proceedings. I think the audio provides important transparency. It provides accessibility. I think technologically, particularly during COVID, the Supreme Court has demonstrated it's able to do it. But I think there is far less risk of politicizing the court's oral arguments, decision-making, the questioning, the lawyers' arguments. Releasing the audio provides significant transparency but keeps the court focused on its very important task, which is deciding things according to law. I think it's better for our country if the Supreme Court is a little more boring and doesn't have Judge Judy as the dynamic in the courtroom. And so, to my mind, this substitute amendment strikes the right balance of providing that transparency but also protecting the court from being overly politicized.
Senator.
So before I recognize another member, you would replace 807, which gives
Yes.
authority for televising, and replace it with an audio that would be taken at each court proceeding, is subject to the same discretionary decision by the court.
There is an ability, if there's a reason to keep it confidential for privacy reasons or otherwise, there's the ability to not put it out. But other than in the extraordinary circumstance, it replaces the cameras in the court provision with saying that the Supreme Court and the lower appellate courts shall put out same-day audio.
I'm not sure if I'm